when I got into my 30s, people would say, ask me, peers my own age, but people a little bit younger, is there something that you would say to your younger self, right? And the only thing I would say is to my younger self is that there's time.
It's much more valuable to remember that we've got time and that it's okay to just take a breath instead of like rushing back and forth, like you said, checking off those boxes.
Yeah.
Because that's when we end up making maybe flash decisions or impulsive decisions. We're told to do certain things to be enough.
Right.
Or to buy something to be enough. Have a house, have a family, follow this, do that.
Yeah.
All these things are unimportant compared to the intrinsic value that we hold and the unlimited value that we have to not only ourselves but to others.
Deep understanding is really learning how to love whoever it is, whatever it is that you are a part of in terms of community. Because he said if you understand who you are with, then you have the possibility of maybe understanding how to actually help them with whatever their challenges are.
Hi guys, welcome to another Beneath the Surface podcast. Today's a very special one. I've got Jason Lambert here. How are you, man?
I'm well. I'm well and good. How about you?
I'm good. It's good to have you on.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about your acting career, like I mentioned before, or your acting, just you in that art form in general. What how did that start? I'm curious. Like, when did that seed get planted?
Yeah. I don't know. I think when I was a kid, through school, even kindergarten, you do the plays.
Oh, totally.
And everybody has that classic story of I don't know, the costume or the number of lines or the carrying a tree and So I was in a school play and then ever since then, when opportunities, whether it's in the classroom or outside, came up, generally school related, through my teens, I was game and interested. I just liked that it was something different. I liked that it was storytelling.
Yeah.
I liked being able to move around and be in the gymnasium or in the theater or it was something out of the ordinary.
Yeah. And it's I feel like it's a very welcoming community. Like people are very open to different ideas, different people. Like everyone's kind of welcome. Especially like when I was like Conval, like I remember like the walking in, seeing people practice, and I was really inspired by that because it's definitely a craft worth going for.
Yeah.
So when you were young, that's when the seed was like. You're like, okay, this is cool. You're like, I want to do this.
Yeah, and I guess, through my parents and the friend groups and people I was with in school, it remained, an all right thing to do. I think as people hit adolescence, they start to feel like they need to choose or focus, and that's understandable. And at the same time, I hit these waters where a lot of things were still cool to do. You didn't feel like you had to choose.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty much that way through high school. And then when I got to college, I was still doing some performing. I was singing and meeting a lot of people, playing intramural sports,
nice.
Studying a lot, and then I got to my junior year. Going into my junior year, I just spent the summer back here working summer job.
Oh yeah, totally.
I was at 12 Pine.
Oh no way!
When it was behind what is now the chocolate shop.
Yeah.
Centertown, that plaza. I guess it might be Gaia's Blessing. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So they literally just opened, and I I was a gopher on a construction site, and then I did the dinner hour at 12 Pine and catered for them that summer. And I graduated with a BA in history,
Nice.
and but I was doing a lot of
Acting.
yeah.
So,
I started doing my junior year, and I saw a lot of really cool stuff, both among undergraduates and at the drama school, and I really started to think about beyond the degree and beyond the college experience, what was it that I wanted to do, and next.
Yeah, totally. That
And,
next step.
yeah, the next step, and part of the privilege that I have had and have has been a really supportive family, and
Yeah.
my parents are both retired educators, and so school was a good thing. Doing what you liked
Yeah.
and like is a good thing. Following your passion. It was the '80s, so
Yeah.
late '80s, and liberal arts. The idea of kind of continuing into college and being open
Yeah.
to exploring different things was had as much currency as anything else,
Mm.
and so there was room for me to do that. There was
Yeah.
enough theater going on so that even if you weren't a major, you could find interesting projects and knowledgeable people and people with quite a bit of skill and talent. And so I had peer examples of
Yeah.
some excellence,
You
and
got a lot of support in that.
yeah,
My
a
God.
ton. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
and then I went out to Seattle and
Yeah.
in January of 1990, and then that's where kind of studying and working in uh, cities and so forth started to gain some traction. And I just a lot of it
Yeah.
is a combination of perseverance and good luck.
Yeah.
So
So support and family and everything.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Your love for this craft was a lot of like the fuel for like that's what I like about hearing about you and your experience with acting and stuff is that like you've got this fuel behind it. You see too many times like nowadays younger people and older people like they go all in for something that might not be something that they personally enjoy or
Right,
love, or
right.
maybe they're being pressured into it, or
Yeah.
going to a certain workforce, or maybe their family's doing it or something.
Right,
So that's
right.
what I like about that is that you all your life it seems like first grade through college, and then you went to Seattle. Like you've been had your eye on this craft, and even more than that, you've been heavily involved.
Yeah.
So that's like something that I look up to is like that being that forget the word I'm looking for, but loyal, I'd say, to what you love.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not going to say that there are times where I've considered or pursued other avenues along with, or certainly over the years there's been a year or two where I've taken a break, or thought maybe there's another angle to my love of language and performance and so forth that. But the thing that has remained constant, even as I have continued to work on the craft of acting and the art of it, is that is just that muscle of asking questions and then also being curious about and cultivating whatever the thing is that's getting you going.
Yeah.
And when I've taught, when I was in drama school, I taught in the BFA conservatory at Rutgers as part of my tuition, and
wow.
and I'd have freshmen or sophomores who would say, I don't know if this is where I need to be right now, or I feel like I want to do this, and my family says that, and I've said, and again, there's a degree of privilege in all of this. But the important thing is that you exercise the muscle of curiosity and taking the time and space to figure out what those passions are, and having the faith that you can pursue them. And if your feeling about it or your interest in it changes and redirects, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the muscle
Like-
of engagement, right?
Yeah, learning that it's okay to change
It is
because
okay.
because everything
Yeah.
is change,
Right.
right?
And yes, absolutely. And all of those experiences have the potential to inform, help, complement whatever it is that you're up to next.
Yeah.
I mean, like with the work that you're talking about that you've lined up next, that's gonna affect how you do this, and the people that you're going to meet, and the ideas that you have, and the kinds of questions you want to ask yourself and other people. So it's and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent.
No, this is great. This is what this is made for.
All right, cool. That's
what I love about it.
I when I got into my 30s, people would say, ask me, peers my own age, but people a little bit younger, is there something that you would say, and this is a classic maybe interview question, that you would say to your younger self, right? Maybe even as I went into my 40s as well, and the only thing I would say is to my younger self is that there's time. That I think when I was about 25, for a while I thought, well, the alarm went off, and sort of a certain sense of exploration was challenged by this other idea of what it meant, what it's going to mean to be an adult or a professional, or fill in that blank that we think is going to happen, once we get to a certain age. And by the time between 25 and 30, by the time I was 30, and I had an opportunity to do other things and other jobs and continued down the path of theater, I realized that the sense of a quality of urgency that I had at 25, like I've got to pick up and go, I've got to do this next thing, I've got to check that out. It isn't necessary. Everybody has their own timeline, and it's not. It's not necessarily true. What's true for another person, or what kind of the cultural norm is, may or may not be so.
Yeah, we should find out for ourselves.
Yeah.
Instead of, wow, that's really interesting, because there's so much. That's all true. It's like finding out that it's much more valuable to remember that we've got time, and that it's okay to just take a breath instead of like rushing back and forth, like you said, checking off those boxes.
Yeah.
Because that's when we end up making maybe flash decisions or impulsive decisions that might hurt us. But if we just sit and just learn to look at ourselves objectively and remember that we're already enough. Like, we don't have to achieve something to be whole,
That's right.
We got to remember that all that stuff is whipped cream on the top,
Yep. That's right.
No, sorry,
it is. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Because I think, and that's something that I've been trying to like focus on, but it's so hard. It's like the definition of easier said than done, right? It's like,
absolutely.
It's like, my God, it takes a lot of inner work to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just remembering that, like, especially like age 20, 25, 30, like any age really, we're told to do certain things to be enough.
Right.
Or to buy something to be enough. Have a house, have a family, follow this, do that.
Yeah.
But it's really just, all these things are unimportant compared to the intrinsic value that we hold, and the unlimited value that we have to not only ourselves but to others.
That's right.
Like, we are medicine, we act as these things to others, but what's good to do is to do the same with ourselves.
Right.
And that's, I think, entering that mindset of we are enough. And ironically, it kind of makes it so we can work even harder in some sense. Like when we realize we're good, that we don't need to prove anything.
Right.
It gives us so much more energy and passion and love towards whatever we're doing.
That's right. Yep, I'm there with you for sure. Yeah.
So that's,
and as you point out, at times easier said than done.
Easier said. Oh man, yeah. I do the same thing. I mean, I'm only 21, but I do the same thing where like I ask, what would I tell my 12-year-old self?
Yeah,
what I mean?
There you go. Yeah.
So it's like, what would I tell him? And me and my friends joke about that. Like, oh man, what if we were in like sixth grade all together again with these brains, or in the sense of like with who we are now.
Right.
And we laugh a lot about it because it's really funny, but it's kind of similar. Like, what would we do then that we do now? But once we realize that all these mistakes and failures or whatever maybe really aren't, because it's how what's most important is how we react to one's failures, rather than the actual failure.
That's right.
And even then, if we react incorrectly, it's like just remembering that, we don't have to do anything. I don't know. It's something that hits home for me because it's like a lot of high school actually in general. When I was at Conval, I was like pretty, down about myself. I was like pretty. I had to my happiness was too much based on others.
Right.
So it was like this thing that was like inevitable. It was the inevitability of it, crumbling down the foundation I've made for like, because it's like I've got to find that in myself.
Yeah.
It's not an external search; it's internal.
Right. Yeah. I have a friend who says, sometimes when you look at some of life's larger questions, you think of them as koans, and koan, Koan. It's sort of a riddle. It's an Eastern philosophical, spiritual.
Cool.
I don't know what you call it.
Like
genre,
kinda,
but it's a form.
Yeah.
And the form asks to be puzzled over, and it really is the act of puzzling over more than a specific answer that is the opportunity of the koan. And so you might have the art koan, and you might have the money koan, and you might have the relationship or relational koan, the community koan, and sometimes we'll say, well, and they're all can be challenging at different times, but maybe the one that's the most challenging is the relational koan.
Yeah.
Because I think some people understand or can reconcile a material, that one's material needs in the world, and more easily than how we on a day-to-day basis relate to the other people in our lives, no matter what that relationship is. And so I really feel for, and I think adults, it's probably as pressing on adults as it is on high school students. It's just there's almost this expectation that in high school it's going to be very, very present.
It's like do that, do this, and if you don't, you're a failure. It's like, or it's at least like no one's really directly saying that, but like there's like an indirect kind of sense of you must do these things, and if you don't, whether they're small things or big things or whatever it is, it's like kind of like this thing that's there,
Right. and then that in the same way the social element, right? Because yes, you got your homework done, you signed up for this, that activity, or however it looks, but then there's who's your best friend? Do you have a date for Saturday night?
Most of it is like social. It's really it's like this. Totally. I like that.
Which is weird to think about, because I think as not weird, but it's interesting because as educators in the building, it's kind of this horse race, because on the one hand you don't want to turn a blind eye to all of that, and at the same time you want to provide structure and focus that it isn't about some of those concerns. So it's this odd thing of like it's there, but we're not gonna live there too much with each other, because there are other ways that we get to interact and other things that we're doing.
Exactly. It's really peer to peer. It's like this. These decisions we have to make in our lives. Like you guys are this structure that is there for support, but like it's really our decision to like see if like we should base our value on having a date Saturday night, or base our value on these social norms,
Right.
like you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is it's relational, as you said. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things are relational, like, and I think that's like what you said. What was that term you used?
Koan.
Koan, like the racial, relational koan.
Yeah. And,
You mentioned.
an example of, an example of like a classic koan is, what is the sound of a one-armed man clapping?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
or like touching, like,
yeah.
oh, I think like touching. Maybe this is different, but I think it was who was it? There's a speaker that I really like. I think he passed away, but he talked about like the idea of touching the tip of this finger with the tip of this finger type thing.
Yeah,
it's like kind of similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like looking at your eye with the tip of your eye with the tip of your eye, like it's impossible, like without a mirror. I mean.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, koans are cool. I like that. Oh.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like especially relational koans, because I think that's where we find our meaning. A lot of it,
right?
It's like, a lot of our meaning is relational,
right.
But how much of that meaning should be relational?
Right,
is the question.
Exactly, it is, and by paying attention long enough, then that's a question you come up with, and then it's there, and then it can. Go its way.
Yeah.
Right? And then
I'm gonna look into this term more after this recording. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of pressures out there, like we were talking about. Like, there's a lot of pressures to be enough, but it's not like one person's fault or like even one community's fault. It's like we've gotta like it's really our fault, as in like we gotta remember that like we are enough, but also it's kind of a balancing act. It's like, remember that, because we shouldn't play victim, because that's a dangerous pit to fall in.
Yeah.
But then we got to remember that, something isn't right for us, and then take action there.
Right.
I've been thinking about that, like how much of a balancing act that is.
Right.
In remembering that we got to take action, not only just know that something's wrong.
Right.
That's right. Like, especially in those like social situations we were talking about, like social expectation. Expectation is a scary thing, but we gotta take it on head first, I'd say.
Yeah. And sometimes there are moments where the strongest action is no action. It's just
that's like that's a Gandhi's like philosophy, right? Like, it's just strongest actions, no action, and remembering that like no action can be unbelievably strong for the positive or for the worse. Like, if you see someone, about to jump off a cliff and you do nothing about it, it's like, well, and you wait there and just wait, even though it's going to happen. It's like, how much fault is based on the person who wouldn't save them. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't really know anything about that much, but that would be a cool like class. You could talk about that stuff, like a soapbox about it.
Action, no action. Yeah.
I remember doing. I think I still have my soapbox in my like Google Drive.
Oh,
and I think
great. What was your subject?
God, I don't remember. I think it was like poetry or something,
cool.
or I remember because I gotta show you this after. But do you remember when for your class, Caleb and I did a video? Jiu-jitsu to the max was our video, and we did. It was like 10,000 or spend 1,000 hours or like 100 hours doing something you've never done before.
Right.
We took classes in jiu-jitsu then made a video about it.
That's right. I feel like there was a sidebar story that went along with that, but I can't remember.
Yeah, there was so much that happened during that. Yeah. Mr. Aborn was the one who taught it.
Right. That was part of it. That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
Is he still around?
He is.
Okay, cool. Like in school, he's like doing school stuff.
He works. I think he works on the fields, and
cool.
He's part of the.
He is so like good at jiu-jitsu. No one
he seems to have a physicality about himself that's
I remember when Caleb and I were in that class, like I was like, all right, here we go. You know what I mean? He showed us like certain pressure points, and stuff, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. We have a lot of like, this body is very, we don't have any armor or any weaponry or any spikes or anything in our biology, so it's interesting how vulnerable we are as human beings, but we have this, so then we could make spikes, aka guns, I guess, you know what I mean? So it's like kind of interesting to see like different animals with different, like breathing underwater, flying, like those are literally superpowers, you know, and animals have them, and like I kind of want them, but then we don't have those out of birth, but then we can make machinery that can fly, and breathe underwater. It's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. I mean, just in that difference, the fact that there are so many things we can make. And then,
the potential. Like,
and what do we make, and what, where, you're talking about where as a humanity we are in terms of how we collectively act and individually think of ourselves in terms of action. And, that there's not, in terms of looking for blame, there's not any one person, that there's a
collective.
It's a collective, and it's a collective challenge, right? But I like to think and tend to think that part of the challenge for the species is to continue to evolve in ways that are more toward what in Eastern philosophy you might call right action. I think people are waking up more and more, like especially due to the last like decade and just climate situations and like to our presidency and like stuff like that. It's like people are realizing that like we have more power than we think, right? And that we can affect change, real change. It's pretty interesting seeing like how certain like groups of people will blame certain groups of people, but we just gotta take the credit for all this devastation, or negative credit, for this devastation, because like if we just fight about it, it's just gonna get worse, That's right. Like this is kind of a oxymoron I'm about to say, but like something I heard the other day online on a podcast I was listening to is someone mentioned that when we are talking about Donald Trump, we're losing. That's when we're losing. Is because we gotta talk about the solutions rather than like being pissed and angry about all that this guy's been doing. It's like, okay, well, let's talk. It's like, it's easy to get pissed and it's easy to get angry, but it's hard to collect yourself and to find solutions and talk about them. So it's like, I like that. Even when we're talking about impeaching, it's like we're losing. We can't put all our energy onto this guy. We have to talk about the solutions. Right. So I like that. And I like, kind of a lot of people waking up to like climate stuff and stuff, but sadly, a lot of the time I see it, at least with my age group, it's like my friends were telling me who come back from college and how like some people go to like climate marches and stuff. It's become like just to go to a climate, like it's becoming more less and less of an issue and more of a thing to say, to like more and more of a social thing, which is like a bummer. Because this is a real problem, and we should not just bring light to it for our own, personal publicity gain or social group gain. So it's hopefully, and I don't know, it's pretty well, because we're already screwed. Like the math is, we're climate wise, right? Like the last 4 years have been the hottest 4 years in human recorded history. Last July was the hottest month in recorded history. So it's like the data's there. And there are already climate refugees, like thousands going on. So we know that we're screwed, but we can be less screwed if we work on this. And kind of like you said, bring this collective effort. So hopefully we do. But yeah, it's kind of wild because no one's really. This is kind of especially with like technology, like the amount of evolution we've been
we're thinking of going to Mars. Like Elon is finding out ways to go to Mars, and like
Right.
that's kind of wild.
Right.
Like I don't want to leave this planet to dust just because we're destroying it to move to another planet.
Right.
Right. But that's like an actual thing. He's like calculating his colonizing Mars, which is pretty wild. Within the next like 5 decades, and it seems like totally science fiction.
Right.
A lot of this stuff's like automation.
Right.
Like everything's getting automated away. But people are like, no, that's 20 years from now. Like, no, people are losing their jobs. Bartenders, all the bartenders in Las Vegas just lost their jobs due to automation.
Right.
There's these arms that you type in your drink.
Yeah.
They'll do it for you.
Right.
Truck driving is the most common job in 29 states.
Right.
All getting automated away.
Right.
Automatic driving.
Right.
Trucks. It's wild,
Right.
So we're in this age of like technological innovation.
Yeah.
And we've got to remember we got to think about how we're going to react to this.
That's right.
Stuff. So
yeah.
Change going on.
Yeah. Huh. How technologies and economies and then also how then do we also want to think about each other as neighbors and
it boils down to like
communities,
communal, communal effort and being able to like get that one-on-one and just look up from our phones.
Right.
And because that's where it starts is like just conversation.
Right.
That's where the power is.
Right.
Is what we're talking about is where we're putting the power, and what we're connecting, and if we're connecting, and if as a group, being able to be vulnerable.
And I know this is a writer and thinker and farmer who we were just talking about, Mr. Bowman and many others in the environmental movement, among others, admires. His name is Wendell Berry. Maybe we talked about him in our class at some point along the way. And he said that, there is technology, there is, the technology of warfare, which certainly is not to be forgotten.
Yeah.
He claimed in an essay that I had read in Orion magazine some time ago that he felt in the 20th century, however, the most significant technological change was the ability to travel.
Yeah.
So airplanes, trains, buses, highways.
Yeah.
And the reason being that, and this dovetails nicely with certain aspects of how we think about American culture and manifest destiny and, westward expansion and all those things, is that part of progress, however you want to define that, meant people leaving.
Yeah.
And that's privilege.
Yeah. But it's good, people. It's insane. It's insanely good that people can like travel. It's like good privilege.
However, in terms of the a cultural momentum, the equation of success or growth with travel or with leaving one's communities. Yeah. I think that the short-sightedness of that is not necessarily anticipating what that meant for how people relate to each other, how families work, how economies are built, and including how technologies then are talked about and integrated into centers of industry and so forth. So, and as we're discussing here, a greater awareness and investment in neighbor community attention, right? And it's a strange thing to think about because you want that freedom, right? And also, I mean, especially for a young person, that the idea of journey, that has
very attractive,
geography is a part of that. It's really natural. Too. I mean, like the energy is there.
Yeah, totally.
The ability,
different cultures,
all of it. But
then being able to settle down and see the value of a group and a community, that's huge.
It is, and I think that's where. And I traveled a great deal and lived in a lot of places until I was almost 40, and then wanted to come home because there wasn't anywhere else I wanted to go.
Yeah,
But,
you were.
and I, have family here, and also think it's an incredibly beautiful place. And
There's a lot of value there.
yeah,
in
but
community.
but we don't. So that's something that continues to be, I think, a distinctly American and privileged part of the culture that we need to continue to understand about ourselves, and listen to each other around that, and also try to cultivate a sense of health and understanding in where we are. And,
Yeah.
and to circle around to Wendell Berry again.
Oh yeah.
He there's this great interview with Bill Moyers from about 2014, and it's I think it might be on the 40th anniversary of a he has fiction and nonfiction, a lot of poetry, but a book. It's called it's The Greening of America or something like that. I'll have to check it out. But so Moyers asks him what is his advice to young people, right? And by young people, this is 2014. He's really looking at people in their 20s then, you now. They're looking at him as a person of letters and an environmentalist. And he says in it, don't think that these questions and these challenges are going to be solved overnight, or even in your lifetime.
Yeah.
That the opportunity is to work toward solution.
Yeah.
And he said, if you find a place that you want to be, he said, then be there.
Yeah.
And he said, and begin to understand the landscape, understand who are the people who are around you, what it is that they do, what's important to them. And he said this too is not going to take this too is not going to be a quick thing to do. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
He said, but with a long time comes a lot of understanding,
patience,
and he said, ultimately, if you're really going to understand something, and I think about it every now and again when he said, deep understanding, he believes, is really learning how to love whoever it is, whatever it is that you are a part of in terms of community, and that kind of empathy and time, because he said, if you understand who you are with, then you have the possibility of maybe understanding how to actually help them with whatever their challenges are.
Medicine.
Right.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
But like the value of community is unlimited. There's like literally people are. A lot of the time, I was talking with a friend of mine today about how like he lived at one point in like this 50 family like colonial like area.
Yeah.
He lived there for years.
Yeah.
He never knew one of them.
Yeah.
Like one-on-one.
Oh yeah.
And he was just like, I hated it. I wanted to know him. I wanted to get to know him, and he moved back here. And it's so much, it's like everyone's scared to say that first hello, or but it's so worth it. It's just endlessly worth it. It's just remembering that community is where it all begins. We need others. We really that's not even exact. We capital N need others, because no one wants to be on a desert island alone forever. We all need our alone time, but we really need circle back to like relational meaning.
Yeah.
It really ties together, because when we have a community that's here to support us, that gives us the foundation to succeed, not only outwardly but inwardly, and to remember that some of the best conversations I've ever had have been just me and a really close friend, and just me just dumping all my like stuff out, and having that small 2-person community with that it's kind of all relational, and having that has been literally life changing. Like
Right.
I would not be the same person without that person.
Right.
Because I was able to get the most vulnerable. Say my deep, darkest, the scariest, let out the fears, rather than keeping them in.
Right.
Because when we have others, that's a mirror. We
Right.
can see ourselves in not the dark ways that maybe sometimes we do see ourselves.
Right.
Like how I did it at in high school and before that and stuff. So, but remember that this is not something that's separate. We're not separate. Right? There are unbelievable synchronicities that happen between people and different relationships, and just remembering that we're not alone in any regard. Really, we all have the capability we all have the capacity to accomplish like unbelievable good and also unbelievable evil. We gotta remember that we can not separate ourselves from the people we love, but also the people that scare us the most.
Yeah.
Because that same thing could happen to us.
Right.
And
Right.
we could be angry enough to react in that way, or happy enough to love in the way that we see in our loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true, man. That's a really good point. It's communal. That's like the biggest thing. It's like, and I think that's what happens at Conval and stuff. Is like kids are scared. When they go into high school, I was scared. I came from a school with like 60 people, but then I found my communal. I found my group.
Right.
I met you and Mr. Bowman, and Mr. Bowman was my task teacher, so I met him like right on.
Yeah.
And he really helped me. And when we had our class, I really took support from you and like the teachers and also just like the kids and having that like communal sense of structure helped me kind of get past the fear of missing out or the fear of not being good enough, so it's kind of like that communal feeling.
And in saying that, sort of going back to this idea of the relational and community, even in saying that, the choice that we always have is, in addition to paying attention to who that other person is, right? Whether we're dumping our darkest fears or thoughts or experiences that we just can't let go of, is the idea that when you're with someone else, ultimately, and maybe in casual exchange and in working towards solutions of things, is that there's opportunity either for harmony or to be working toward action toward harmony or not. Ultimately, and so that's an interesting thing to think about. When there's friction or when there's anxiety, what is that about? And is it really about this other person, or or what is my role in it? And at the community level, while it's essential and it never goes away, right? We're all always having the potential for some effect. I think, as we're talking here about ideas and the evolution of ideas around community, there's also the evolution and potential there of how we understand ourselves. And so, when you're talking about getting it out. There really is this thing of you are getting it out. That it's just like a koan or a question. There's a feeling or there's a thought. And it's like everything else. It's constantly in flux. Right. There's a temporality about it. And oftentimes those things that are coming out really have to do with ego, right? And I was just like looking at some of the books that you have here and so forth. And I think our idea of the individual and of ourselves is also has the potential to evolve significantly in a way that can really help. Because while we're always parts of communities, we also are always our own selves. And to have and to help culturally cultivate a healthy understanding of what that is, and what that feels like, and how that can function, is equally important.
I agree. It's like we got to start with ourselves rather than start outwardly, and then outwardly, if we start with ourselves, it's like we can succeed even more outwardly and relationally.
Right. And you make the effort, or the right action, or the right thought, or the right speech. All those eightfold things that you see in that like Buddhist wheel.
But
at the end of the day, you end up back to yourself.
Yep.
And so that is the constant.
Yeah.
And I think
that's the best thing to work on a lot of the time.
Well, but then you have the energy to venture forward. To
builds a foundation for other foundations.
Right.
With others.
Yeah. And to have new understanding of thoughts and ideas, and what it is to be with someone else, and how do we take care of ourselves?
And have respect for ourselves. It is. It is.
And it's not easy. And especially in this time and age. I'm sure you've heard people my age, and probably a little bit younger and a little bit older. It's just part of the function of economy, a kind of wealth, technology, is that there's less and less room for time alone.
And it's like it's more and more people are being scared or feeling like they can't be alone. Like it's a hard time for me to be alone a lot of the time. And I try to analyze that and be like, okay, let's just work on this, and it's because the best thing you could do is practice to be alone. Just working on that, and really helps with the relational a lot of the time. Just like being able to not have to be doing. And
finding the balance of those things.
Exactly.
A favorite.
Do you have to go? I'm sorry. Okay.
Shortly,
cool.
but I just want to.
No worries. In my head, I was like, oh my god.
No. I just checked. We're good.
Okay. Cool.
I'll head out in a couple minutes.
Cool.
Henry David Thoreau.
Oh yeah.
And one of the projects, kind of bringing it back around to theater, that we're working on at the workshop, is an exploration of the work of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the Transcendentalists. Henry David Thoreau's in the mix, and a great collaborator of Emerson's named Margaret Fuller, who has been described as perhaps the most important person in terms of his own thinking and writing and collaborating over the certainly the first half of his life. But Thoreau said, and Emerson always thought that Thoreau was the man of action that Emerson always wanted to be, and I think Thoreau thought Emerson was in this pantheon of men of thought and speech that Thoreau wanted to be. But Thoreau said in his time on Walden Pond, I can't resist.
That's okay.
I promise I'm out of here.
No. As long as I can have you, seriously.
He said, in his the little shed that he built, he had 3 chairs, one for solitude, 2 for friendship, and 3 for society. And and I think that as a culture, whether we're artists or whatever our art is, right? Podcasts or education or companionship, that if we can find a balance of those things that feel healthy to the majority of us and are authentic, and that we're of a culture that really helps to encourage that, then we're going to be doing all right.
That's
and there are plenty of us who are, in a lot of ways, yourself included, who know and have these pockets of knowing, right? And likewise,
working on it and making sure to have time to sit in each of those chairs.
Absolutely.
And like you said, have that balance, because like you could have way too much doing and like a tiny slither of nothing, or sitting in solitude, and I found myself in that, like just like always doing. I just got to remember to be okay with sitting with myself.
And for each person, that mix can be different. And at different points in their lives, it may be different.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll
Yeah.
end it off then. Thank you for coming on, man.
Alex, thank you.
We
Yeah.
really appreciate
Yeah,
it, and
good.
we'll see you guys next time on the Beneath the Surface podcast.
Yay! All right.